there are going to be sometimes you're going to get feedback where you'll never be able to find any truth in it. You're like, that's just wrong, right? But more times than not, if you're able to process just the initial emotions that come up and sit with those and then look back and you're right, like lean back in and go, is there anything I can learn here? Is there some truth in this?
Mm-hmm.
And there may be sometimes where it's a no, but more often than not, we can find something that we're like, ooh, I could have done that better. Or you know what? Okay, here's some learning for me. Here's how the next time I have a situation like that, I'm going to make sure I explain it like this. I let them know what my boundaries are, et cetera, et cetera.
Hi, guys, and welcome to the House Call Vet Cafe podcast. I'm Dr. Eve Harrison. I'm a full-time integrative concierge house call veterinarian in Los Angeles, and I help other vets to build their unique mobile practices on their terms. This podcast is for and by house call and mobile veterinarians, so it is meant to give our community a platform to connect, to share our stories, to lift each other up, and to support each other. Most of us work solo as lone wolves, right? So for me, it's been really powerful to be able to physically hear the voices of my colleagues from all over the world and to get a chance to feel that we truly are part of a community of very real other human beings who get it. While you may be alone in that little bubble of your own vehicle when you're on the road seeing patients, I welcome you to join our community by tuning into our own podcast when you're on your way to your next house call. Whether you're a super experienced house call vet with 30 years of experience, you're a brand new prospective house call vet just looking to get started, or you're house call curious, there will be something for you in this podcast. Each episode, you will hear interviews from other mobile veterinarians just like yourself who are doing unique and innovative things, vets who are sharing their stories, their struggles and challenges, and you can also look forward to hearing valuable information and perspectives from specialists and experts outside of our micro niche. And finally, if becoming a house call veterinarian is something that you've been thinking about exploring, or you're looking for some extra support getting your own mobile practice to feel more profitable and sustainable for you, check out the information in the show notes about my course and our above and beyond supportive private community for members only, plus our monthly group coaching sessions within the House Call Vet Academy. You can also check out my free public Facebook group, which is also called the House Call Vet Cafe, the same name as this podcast, and which is a warm and cozy community for mobile vets to support each other in professional and personal development, in creative entrepreneurship, and in friendship. So thank you guys for spending time with me today. Let's dive into the episode.
If you're looking for help with ultrasound scanning, whether that's choosing a new machine or developing your ultrasound skills, check out the First Opinion Veterinary Ultrasound website at fovu.co.uk for independent machine reviews and online and in-person teaching options. FOVU, simplifying ultrasound.
Welcome back, guys. We are here with part 2 of our amazing conversation with Julie Squires and me, where we interview each other. We just had so much to say that we had to split it into 2 episodes. So here you go. Here's the rest of the episode. Enjoy. It's so interesting, like in Western philosophies and Eastern philosophies and mind-body modalities, the messaging is in many ways so similar, and it's just expressed in different language and, whatever kind of floats your boat, whatever language you like to use. And it's just so compatible, and especially in terms of healing language. And when we're dealing with PTSD or secondary PTSD from observing, the issue, it's just these so many interesting modalities. And I feel like through my yoga teacher training, the compassion fatigue can be addressed with that understanding that it's an ongoing process. It's a repeat over and over again to return to center, because life, especially veterinary life, has a way of pulling us out. It's like almost like a centrifugal force that we're then kind of like doing the work to return all the time, constantly at every moment. And so I am curious to go back to something that I mentioned before, that toxic positivity. Do you have any thoughts there? I have so many thoughts, and
Yeah.
I myself walk that line, because in personal development and spiritual communities and, just dealing with trauma, any type of healing modality, we can so easily, accidentally blame the person who's experiencing the things. And, we're supposed to take back our power, but that doesn't address the fact that there are things outside of our control that, happen to us as well. It's not always our fault, right?
Right. Right. Well, the whole toxic positivity thing, like, first of all, I mean, it's been something that I'm a life coach that teaches, one of the main things I teach people is empowerment over their mindset. I'm a coach that teaches people the importance of their thoughts because it's our thoughts that cause how we feel, right? It's not the situation that causes how we feel. And when you first start teaching people this, it's our natural inclination to go to this place of, oh, so if something horrible happens to me, then so Julie's saying that it's my thoughts that cause my feelings. So if I don't want to feel sad or devastated, then I should think happy thoughts about the terrible thing that happened. And it's such a way to close down our understanding of truth. It's such a extreme example, and it's a misunderstanding of the power of our own brain. And it's funny because I was just working with an organization where, they asked me to do a survey. And in the survey, like, some of the people were really angry and they were like, this was toxic. Like they were throwing this toxic positivity that basically they were saying, oh, I really didn't like that she taught us that when trauma happens, we should just think positive thoughts about it. And it's like, that's actually not what I teach at all.
Hmm.
But toxic positivity actually means, if we were to like drill down, what does it mean to be toxically positive? It means that no matter what's going on in the world, I'm going to think positively about it. So it's like, okay, so if one of my patients was hit by a car, well, I'm going to think positive thoughts about it. If there's a war going on in Ukraine, I'm going to just think positive thoughts about it. If my mother dies suddenly, I'm just going to think positively about it. That's not what anyone is teaching, right? It's like, and we could do that if we wanted, but who wants to do that?
Right.
Like, we don't want to be looking at situations like that and thinking positively about it. We do want to experience things in the world through negative emotions.
Yeah, you have to feel those
Yes.
emotions and
Yes.
move through them.
But we need to understand that we're always the creator of our emotions. Our thoughts create how we feel. The situation never causes how I feel. The patient being hit by a car doesn't cause my feelings. It's what I think about my patient being hit by a car that causes how I feel. A war doesn't cause my feelings. It's what I think about it. And I'm not suggesting that we think positively about any of those things. But when we understand that, oh, it's not the client, what they said, their Yelp review doesn't cause my emotions, it's still what I think about it, then we have some agency to decide, well, wait a minute, what do I want to think about it? There are many things that I don't want to think a positive thought about, right? So toxic positivity to me is sort of this way that we gaslight
Yeah.
the entire positive psychology movement to say, wait a minute, things outside of me cause my feelings. And therefore, I don't want to have agency over how I feel. And I'm like, you're doing yourself such a disservice to not open up to what's available to you in using your own brain to generate how you feel. And the answer won't always be a positive emotion.
Mhm. Very interesting. Yeah. It's really interesting also because, like you said, there can be misunderstandings and misrepresentations about
Mhm.
taking sort of empowerment intrinsically or sort of subtly, inherently placing blame on people. And it's a subtle difference. It's not quite that. And
Yeah.
there are people who are more or less skilled at explaining that concept so that it appears to be toxic positivity
Mhm.
versus not. But thank you for leaning into that with me because it's an interesting thing on my mind. And when it comes to the negative Yelp review, for example, it can easily turn into, okay, vet, you have control over your mind, so you shouldn't be upset about this Yelp review. And it's like, well, I think it's only human. It's natural
Mhm.
to be upset.
Mhm.
And then, move through the emotion, feel the emotion, and then recognize that you have power beyond that.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing. It's like, I think we think, like, when I got this feedback, when there was like some of these comments in this survey, they were really, again, it's like anything. It's like there were great comments and then there were some not great comments at all. And my
Yeah.
brain immediately went to, you know, thoughts that created so much shame for me about, oh, she says we should think positively about the trauma that we've experienced. That's not helpful at all. My brain immediately went to thinking, oh my gosh, I failed them. Right. That was my thought,
Oh,
which created so much shame. That
yeah.
was my initial reaction, right? there's not much we're going to do with our initial reaction. But like you said, I was able to process the shame. I was able to lean into the shame. And once I'm able to do that, then I was able to look for, wait a minute, where are they right? Where did I do a disservice? Where didn't I explain myself well? Where didn't I give better examples? Where did I assume that they were like, and that opens me up, right?
Mhm.
And that's can be a beautiful thing. Like that's the thing with feedback. I get it. Our initial reaction, it's like a gut punch.
It is, yeah.
And there are gonna be sometimes you're gonna get feedback where you'll never be able to find any truth in it. You're like, that's just wrong, right? But more times than not, if after the initial, if you're able to process just the initial emotions that come up and sit with those, and then look back and you're right, like lean back in and go, is there anything I can learn here? Is there some truth in this?
Mhm.
And there may be sometimes where it's a no, but more often than not, we can find something that we're like, ooh, I could have done that better. Or you know what? Okay, here's some learning for me. Here's how the next time I have a situation like that, I'm going to make sure I explain it like this. I let them know what my boundaries are, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
So it
I
doesn't happen.
love that about the sort of coaching space and the personal development space. When done right, and it allows you to move through your feelings, doesn't invalidate, and then takes it another step further so that it's like, actually, how can I use this
Yeah.
fuel? How can I actually make it so this doesn't happen next time? How can I make it so that I have a better service or product? How can I make it so that I feel really good about myself? And really assess like, okay, and some of this is bullshit. We're not taking
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Like you with your rational mind and it eases things because often the pain comes when you think, hey, maybe this is true and I suck and I should be ashamed.
Right.
Like all of that stuff. And I do have to say, like, that kind of combination of approach, let yourself feel it and then go ahead and learn from it. I would say my house call service is a million times better because of a lot of people who hurt me.
Mm, say more
Not
about that.
not that I wanted to keep those people in my practice. I'm quick to fire
Mhm,
because I don't want to be constantly doing the work while I'm doing the work of being a vet. Like if
mhm,
someone's over and over again triggering me or has a way of communicating with me in a way that hurts me, I can't have that all the time. But
mhm.
later on, I can go back and listen. Like you said, was there any truth in this? What of this can I take for good to make myself better, to make my practice better? And I've definitely had clients that I fired, and then later on, I went back and was like, "There may be a point there. Let me investigate this." And it wasn't until I took the steps I needed to be safe, like potentially removing that client based on how they communicated that
Mhm.
information to me, that I could then go back and be like, "I'm okay now. I'm okay. I'm alright. What of this can help me move forward?" So it's an interesting type of process and there's a lot to talk about this because in the vet profession right now, specifically the kind of almost antagonism between client and veterinarian, like, it's all their fault. It's all their fault. And there's a breakdown, right? Like a lot of people in the vet space feel either victimized by, traumatized by, you know, damaged by our clients, and they feel the same
Yeah.
about us. And so it's an interesting thing that I've been, wanting to lean into and it's complex because everyone is allowed to feel their feelings and should feel their feelings and is allowed also to remove people that convey whatever constructive or non-constructive feedback in a way that's harmful. And then beyond that, how do we move forward? I think is some of the work that you do that helps people to kind of take back their power. Like, okay, this person said a thing on Yelp or to my face that was very hurtful. Great. We either get rid of them or we keep them. We adjust our behavior. And then what?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think you're so right on about like I talk a lot about, the victim mentality that I see in vet med right now. And hey, I'll be the first one. I do know that, I don't need to be convinced. I do know that there's a lot more instances of clients that are angry and frustrated and behaving poorly. And I'm 100% with you. There are clients that need to be fired.
Yep.
However, like, there's so much animosity towards clients that are just having an emotional reaction to things. Like, that is part of being human, and we have to learn how to be able to deal with just human beings that are having emotional reactions. Now, there's a very different, an emotional reaction is if I'm yelling at you and calling you, every name in the book versus if I'm raising my voice and saying, I don't understand this. You didn't tell me. Those are very different things, right? It's like, and they're do need, like, we have to figure out, yes, what is something that's potentially dangerous? What's something that's not okay with us? And what's just human beings that are also having thoughts, creating their feelings, right? That are then again, showing up in ways that, aren't always what we want. I mean, hey, our pets mean an awful lot to us. We don't freak out about, if there's, well, I was going to say we don't freak out if there's no toilet paper in the, we did
We
2 years ago. We freaked out big time. But normally we don't have a meltdown in that aisle because we don't care that much about toilet paper. We care a lot about our pets. So we
Yeah.
freak out if we think that that bond has the potential of being broken. And you're right. It's such about, can I see things when I can, because the work is, the more work I do on myself, the more I'm able to see my own and experience my own levels of discomfort, shame, vulnerability, fear, then I'm able to accept it and appreciate it in someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But if
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done my own work, then when somebody else is coming at me and it looks like anger, but it really is sadness. Anger, it presents as anger, but it's often sadness. When I haven't done my own work and somebody presents at me and they're angry, I'm not able to hold space for them. I'm not able to be understanding and compassionate with them
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like I'm now in conflict with them.
Yeah. Oh, that's so very interesting. And I think for me personally, that's another one of those places where there's an ebb and a flow. Like I come back to it, I come back to it. There are times where I can handle someone's
Yeah.
anger at me
Yeah.
if it's displaced because I'm like, I get it. They're a good person. They're just off their rocker right now. It has
Mhm.
nothing to do with me. And times where I have so much on my plate, I'm holding my own stuff and I'm like, I can't hold your anger right now. You
Yeah.
cannot be my client. I cannot
Mhm.
have this. And it's both. And I think there are times where both are appropriate depending on what our own capabilities are.
Yeah.
And I would say, doing the work definitely helps you get more into the category of I can hold space for this person, even while they might be berating me, even if it's not personal.
Mhm.
If they're berating or guilt tripping or implying it's your fault, blaming,
Mhm.
things like that, those are places usually where you don't, you shouldn't be holding
Yeah.
space for that. But if
Yeah.
it's like really truly not personal and we're putting a story onto it that it is personal when it isn't, that's where the work comes in. It's such an interesting ebb and flow. And I think it's also important to honor our own capabilities in the moment. If we can
Yes.
sit and hold space, do so. If we can't, we
Yeah.
need to also value our own okayness inside, regardless of whether we have or haven't done the work or, we're just having
Mhm.
a bad day or whatever it is. But I'm so curious to hear a little bit more when you say doing the work. I know what that means to me. What does that mean to you? And
Yeah.
do you have any tips for people in terms of holding space for someone who's, expressing displaced emotions all over you?
Mhm. Yeah, I'll answer that question first because I feel like that's like, how do we hold space for somebody who is, having their own emotional experience? I think it's two things. I think it's first of all about understanding that the situation never causes our emotions. Like you have to down to your bones. This is cognitive psychology. I didn't make this up. The situation triggers a thought in our brain. That thought in our brain causes how we feel. How we feel causes how we behave. That's the way all human beings operate. So, first of all, can I understand that what I'm experiencing, if someone's yelling at me, let's say, raising their voice in a way that I'm willing to tolerate, I have to understand that, first of all, okay, that's coming from how they feel, which is coming from what they think. It's not coming from me. I'm just their situation, right? They have thoughts about me that cause how they feel. But I think we do this so well with our patients. Like, why is it that we're so able to understand when our patient is being uncooperative, resistant, fearful, frustrated, angry? Like, we have a thought of like, oh, well, they don't understand.
Hmm.
Well, that's the same thought we need with our clients. They don't understand either, right? It's like, so it's almost like we all have the skill. We already use the thought process to deal with your patients. Like, you're already like, yeah, they're afraid. They don't know what's going on. They're hurting. Same thoughts apply to the humans. They don't understand what's going on. They're hurting.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think it's like, so I teach a lot of my clients to just, to envision or imagine that their clients are just like pets, right? It's like, give them a breed, right? Especially if it's a dog, like, oh, this person's acting like a chihuahua or whatever. Like, this is like very, like, just pick your breed. I don't want to stereotype. I don't want to make anyone mad.
Right.
But because I really feel like in any situation, there are two paths. You can go down the path of judgment, which is what most of us do, which is where our brain takes us naturally,
Yes,
or we can
yes.
go down the path of compassion. And compassion can be compassion for self and compassion for others. Sometimes compassion of self is, you know what? This is not okay with me. This conversation ends. I'm hanging up.
Beautiful.
And then sometimes compassion is, wait a minute, you know what? I really want to help you. I'm really here to help you, but I can't help you if you're yelling at me. And you have to understand I care so much about your dog and I want to help you with it, but I can't do so if you're going to continue to yell at me.
Mm-hmm.
Let me please understand what's going on. Right. So compassion works both ways. Yeah. Sometimes compassion is walking away,
Right. Right.
and everyone's allowed to do that. Everyone's allowed to do that. And then in answer to your other question about what does it mean to do the work, to do the work is recognizing where are the places that I am based on my emotions. I am trying to either avoid how I'm feeling, right? Because I'm feeling either inadequate, I'm feeling self-doubt, I'm feeling judged, I'm feeling lack of confidence. Like where are those places that, I'm trying to like hit the easy button versus kind of lean in to be like, okay, what's here for me to really understand about myself?
Mm-hmm. Cool. That's a really nice description. That makes a lot of sense. And let's see. What do you think would be, for a veterinarian or a vet tech who might be listening, what would be some of your top tips on how to start doing the work in that way?
Journaling.
Mm-hmm.
I think journaling is the answer to all of the world's problems. No, I'm kidding.
I love journaling. I am a huge journaling fan.
Oh, yay. Tell me, how do you journal?
Oh, I have been journaling. I have books and books and books from almost my entire life, starting from when I was like 8 years old, a unicorn diary that was locked up and had like little bits of horsehair from like when I went horseback riding one time and like flowers. So like half scrapbook, half like scrolling of an 8-year-old to now just like writing down a few notes almost every morning. Like, how did I sleep? How do I feel this morning? Do I have anxiety this morning? Or am I feeling great and ready to go? And then times I just kind of freestyle. Like, if I have a lot on my mind or a lot of ideas, creative ideas, I will just like sit down and like train of thought, like whatever's in my head comes out on the page. Usually it's without any judgment. Most of the time, I never go back and look at it. It's just kind of helps me to see what I'm thinking. Every once in a while, I do go back and it's very interesting to see, like, wow, this idea has come up 80 million times. I've written these exact words over and over and over again. This is obviously a me thing. Wow. What's your journaling like?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot, usually just a free form writing. It's like really, it's just like, whatever's going on in my head. Oh, I didn't sleep well last night. Oh, I feel anxious today. Oh, I don't know if I'm prepared for this and the other thing. But so there's sometimes I'll just allow my brain, I kind of call journaling as mental hygiene. It's like, that my goal is to just dump out whatever's in my mind onto paper to clear out my brain. I consider that hygiene. But also in the last year, well, so my mother died. She had a massive heart attack almost a year ago right now. And so one of the things that has given me such solace, and I give this anyone who's grieving, this has been one of the like really most powerful practices, is a lot of my journaling starts with dear mom, and it's almost like I'm talking to my mother. And it's like sometimes I'm telling her about things that happened, but I'm also incorporating, oh, I have this podcast interview today with Dr. Eve Harrison, and I'm so nervous about it. So it might even be like that, right? So it'll be like, but that gives me, it's been super powerful because it feels like it reinforces my relationship with my mom and really makes her feel so like still part of me. And I feel so connected to her still by doing that. So that's another way that I journal.
That's incredibly beautiful. And that's almost like it feels like a meditation to me, like to connect with someone so important to you and revisit the part of her within yourself.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And who's to say we couldn't do that with an animal that we are really deeply connected to, your own pet, let's say, right? Or could even be, part of journaling could be, especially maybe those patients that you have, that the ones that boy, they weasel their little way into your heart. And it's like, and they're the ones that you're grieving over and crying over for a week,
Yeah.
or like maybe there's a space to speak to them as well. That could be
Uh,
another. Yeah.
oh, you just took this conversation in such a moving way. Like, oh, this is going to make me cry. No, I mean that in the best way. Like, that's really, really special and important. And I mean, your work with grief, I think, brings, ideas like that up. And I mean, I think grief is a part of all of our experiences as humans, but like on steroids for veterinarians and anyone in the vet space, because we're dealing with life and death
Mhm.
constantly. And we're not taught any coping techniques. We're not
No.
taught about doing the work in
Mm-mm.
this way, or, the death in general, it's a metaphysical, potentially a metaphysical experience. And for us mere mortals to be winging it and how we deal with this every day in our job is kind of silly to me. And so I so welcome leaning into these kinds of subjects, learning how to be at peace and connect with the loss, or how to integrate it and to honor it. And, those are, wow, that's really beautiful. That's really beautiful.
Well, thank you for seeing, the connection there, and also being able to weave that into the opportunity that exists in veterinary medicine. It's fascinating to me. We never talk about grief. It's fascinating to me that in my compassion fatigue training, all the compassion fatigue training did, we never talked about grief. It's like this thing over here, this redheaded stepchild that everyone's like ignoring. And I'm like, well, what the heck? It's like we're grieving every single day in vet med.
Yeah.
There's so much grief. And the work, if I were to sum all this up, the work really is learning how to feel, allow, and process your emotions. That is a practice. It's something we all need to figure out, right? I've done episodes on it on my podcast. I teach people how to feel feelings. I teach myself every single day how to
Right.
feel my feelings, because every single day I don't want to.
Right. Because it's
Every single
hard.
day, every single day, I'm like, I'll eat chocolate instead. It's like, but it still comes back to like, and to bring this all the way back around to where we started, it's like, I think in those times where compassion fatigue is real. And in those moments where it's like so much about compassion fatigue is I don't know how to allow myself. I don't know how to allow my emotions to be there. I don't know how to allow them to move through me and their energy. That's what emotions are, energy and motion. That's what they translate to. And if I don't learn how to do that, if I don't learn that practice of how to sit with and open myself up to the feelings I have in that moment, then they accumulate.
Yep.
And I keep pushing them down, I keep pushing them down, and then my give a damn gets busted.
That's right.
And I'm crying over, the traffic. I'm crying over seeing someone walk their dog down the street, like things that have nothing to do with it because again, it's accumulated, right? So
Totally.
it's
Totally.
and no one teaches us this.
No, no, and it's, like, not okay because the
Right.
you is so entrenched in feelings and emotion and
Yeah.
I mean, if you are to be a good practitioner, you have to feel those feelings, like,
Yeah.
if you're not empathizing, and empathy
Yeah.
means to feel with someone or to understand with someone and to see and hold space for, to witness that
Yes.
experience. If you're not doing that, it's gonna be very hard to be a good practitioner, be it a vet tech or a veterinarian, and your clients will feel that.
Yes.
So that's a liability to not feel. And if you do feel, that's hard. And
Mhm.
we should, damn it, be trained and be given resources and tools on how to handle the depth of what we witness, what we go through ourselves. And so I'm just super grateful that you are a resource for so many of us. And
Thank you.
I got really great feedback on your lecture in the House Call Vet and Mobile Vet virtual conference. And I mean, I think we could talk for ages. Like, we
I
could
know we
probably
could.
do 10 podcast episodes out of what
We
we have to
could.
say.
Yeah.
And I mean, I completely abandoned the script. Like, I had
I
all
know.
the
Me too.
questions, and I was like, no, we're just going with it.
I know. It's
But to kind of wind things down a little bit, can you tell me a little bit about what it was like speaking to a bunch of house call vets and what your experience was like speaking in that conference?
Yeah, it was amazing. What a privilege and honor. So thank you so much for having me speak at your conference. And I love the way it was all set up and you did a fabulous job, you know, making that all come to fruition. So my hat's off to you. I can't even imagine what that was like. It was amazing. It was amazing. What was amazing to me was to see, first of all, to put myself into, because like any different audience, I have to like lean on what do I know about, house call veterinarians. And I've had the privilege of, when I was in sales for many years, I called on house call vets. So I had, I have some idea of, and I've done house calls when I was a veterinary assistant, I did, home euthanasias a little bit, that wasn't a consistent service that we offered, but for, some clients we did. So I had a tiny bit of just a little glimpse into it, and I have coached clients that are house call vets. So
Cool.
I have known a little bit about what that's like, but for me, it was just such an honor to give voice to something that everyone's experiencing, but yet they don't hear anyone addressing. And when they finally hear someone addressing it, they're like, oh my gosh, she knows me. I'm like, yeah, I do know you.
Mhm.
And that's an honor and privilege. I love to be able to do that, to give recognition and acknowledgement and normalization to
Yeah.
what everyone's experiencing.
That's so important and so valuable, like, especially in the house call world where I talk about this a lot. We're all like little islands working on our own, and
Yeah.
so we don't know
Yeah.
what's normal. We feel maybe we're not normal,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
we're struggling alone, and so to have someone who sees you, understands you, on a human level, like, this is
Yeah.
normal what you're feeling. It's really powerful, and I'm really grateful that you were able to connect with the house call vet community in that way and provide that understanding and, all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And I have one final question for you before we call this. I want to know what outside of veterinary medicine brings you immense joy.
Oh, I love it. So for me, my joy is my music. So before I was a vet, before I was anything, I was a musician and have always had the flute as like the instrument that speaks my soul to the world. And I was a music major in college and I used to teach a little bit. I don't have time now. And I consider myself at this point kind of semi professional because I do paid gigs, but I don't depend on it for my living. But playing flute, playing music, it's the most magical thing for me. It makes me feel like I'm Eve. Like my whole who I am is like my mind and my body are united. I'm expressing authentically who I am. It's like integrity in this moment. My flute is in my hand. I am expressing myself with my mind and I don't know, it's just a different part of my brain than being a vet, and when I come back to that, I just know who I am again. And so that is like the truest joy that I know.
And can I just say that picture of you on your website with you and your flute and all the animals around you? First of all, I will link to that in my show notes because everyone needs to look at that picture. It
Oh,
is
thank you.
amazing. It's the most beautiful thing. I was like, oh my gosh, I need a photo like that. I don't play flute, but
Well, you should. I'll teach you. And yeah, that picture, a friend of mine is a photographer and put that together for me. And when I saw it, I cried because I was like, how did you capture my soul in a photograph? How?
that's what it's ethereal. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. And then for me to read that you love mushrooms, what did you say? Fairy habitats, right?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Nature. I was like, of course she loves all those things. Of
Thank you
course.
so much for reading that. And can I ask you, usually I ask what people drink, what your favorite
Yeah.
beverage is in the house called Vet Academy, but I'd like to ask that and what brings you joy.
Yeah. Coffee is my favorite beverage. Good coffee. I'm a coffee snob, so it's
Mhm.
good coffee. And what brings me immense joy? Oh my gosh. I say what brings me immense joy is my family,
Yeah.
the people that I love. Yesterday was Easter and got to be with my family, my husband and my brother and his family, and just went out to dinner and had a crazy expensive meal and we just giggled through how expensive it all was. And but it just made my heart full. Like that's what matters to me is the people I love, and the
Yeah,
animals I love, which they're
incredible.
my people too. So
They
are
are.
my family too. Yeah.
They are. I love that.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, I mean, I have to add my family in there too because, that what's better than, the people you love and the people you created and the network and connection that you found for yourself. So I love that. And it seems like the two of us have a tendency to go into long form podcasting. So I think
We do. I like that.
we do. We'll have to have a part two or, revisit.
Yes. I'm in.
But it's been so nice chatting with you, and I can't wait for this to air on both of our platforms. And
Too.
um,
Thank you.
keep rocking. You're
Yeah.
amazing, and we'll talk soon.
Yes. And you know what? I feel the appropriate way to end this is namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, Eve.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the House Call Vet Cafe. If you enjoyed this episode, then hit the subscribe or follow button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never have to miss an episode. This podcast is made specifically for you, so don't be shy if you'd like to reach out and let me know your thoughts on this episode. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as The House Call Vet Academy, where I also share more valuable content. If you're interested in learning more about consulting for House Call Vets or the House Call Vet Academy online course and community, please click on the link in the show notes. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I can't wait for you to join us for our next episode of the House Call Vet Cafe.